Welcome to the Make Each Click Count podcast. This is your host, Andy Splichal. And today we are happy to welcome this week's guest to discuss today's topic, which is 5 ways to boost your e-commerce conversion, revenue, and profitability. Today's guest is the president and co-founder of 329, a Sacramento-based web design and online advertising group who believes online and mobile marketing solutions provide the best ROI and brand reach available to businesses. A big welcome to Kevin Howe. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. Before we get into improving conversion, I'm curious right off. 329, it's a really interesting name for an agency. Is there a story behind that, or how did that name come about?
Yeah, so a little one. I was working at another agency locally, and they found out they were eliminating my position, basically shrinking the agency down. And it was on March 29th of 2010, so a couple days before my 30th birthday. And I came home and I was talking to my wife, and I'd always wanted to start my own agency. And she actually said, like, you should do it. You should call it 329. We found out today. And it just kind of stuck. And then my second son was actually born 4 years later on March 29th. So just
Wow.
one of those, one of those days in my life that just historically has kind of moved me along.
Cool. I figured there had to be a story because it's such a unique name.
Yeah.
Now, conversion,
Yeah.
improving conversion, battling can improve conversion. It's probably the biggest obstacle in a company's growth. So I'm excited to have you on to talk about it. Let's start with going through the 5 ways you mentioned in a recent blog post I saw. It was 5 ways to improve e-commerce conversion, revenue, and profitability rate. Those 5 ways, I'd like to go through each and maybe dive into a little bit of detail if we can.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the first one you listed was page speed, which I was a bit surprised that it was the first one listed. Do you think it's because it's the most important, or why did you list it first?
Yeah, we listed it first because for me, it's one of the most overlooked. So there are other avenues that people look at, like having reviews on your site and not, whether or not they're available for people. But a lot of people don't look at page speed. With the tools that are available with sites like Shopify, where people can kind of spin up their own e-commerce, they're not looking at the technical side of it, and they're not looking to see how can I make this site perform better and therefore drive more conversions. And when we did these audits, we audited about 36 companies in the last year, all their e-commerce data, what's working, what's not working. And page speed is on almost nobody's radar. And so we start with it because it's technical and it does make a big impact. And there's study after study that kind of shows the better you can get with page speed, the better you're going to push your conversions across kind of all sites e-commerce related.
Cool. And how are you measuring page speed?
Yeah, so we use a couple tools. The primary one, Google has a tool that's called Lighthouse. You can also use it on they have a website where you can post it. And that becomes our main barometer of what we look at. And it's going to cover a bunch of different areas where page speed can be improved. And so what we do is we start with a report, run the site through this page speed report, and then take a look at where there's optimizations that we can do from a technical standpoint to help improve the speed of the site.
And where are you satisfied with a client as far as, are you trying to get to 100% page speed? Are you trying to get to 80%? I mean, where is good? Where is it limited returns, I guess, on your effort?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our goal on an e-commerce site is between 60 and 70 on their ranking. Most e-commerce sites, right? There's lots of photos. Sometimes you'll have videos, those sorts of things. Pages are pretty advanced nowadays. And you're not going to get to like 80, 90, 100. And you can, but it's really hard. And you do see diminishing returns. So if you can get something in the 60 to 70s, they're loading quickly. If you can get 70 to 80 on mobile by hiding certain pieces of content, by not loading some images, maybe taking a video that doesn't get a lot of views on mobile and hiding it so it's not loaded, those numbers are really, really good. A lot of the sites that we come across have page speeds that, when Google's ranking them, are in the low teens to single digits. So you're taking a site that Google looks at and says, like, okay, the page speed here is a 7, which impacts your search engine optimization, right? And it impacts your conversion.
Now, the next thing on your article on improving conversion was
Mhm.
enhanced checkout flow. What can you go into some detail on that?
Yeah, so checkout flow for us is there's this battle between single page and multi-page and how somebody moved through the checkout process to get them committed to purchase, right? You can come from an ad, you add a product to your cart, and then as you go through that checkout process, there's different points where people can fall off. And what you want to look at is where are they falling off? Is a single page work checkout working, or should you go to a multi-page? This ties in a little bit to shipping, right? Where are we showing shipping? How are we showing shipping? We know that in general, a multi-step checkout works better than a single page because people are inputting content slowly over time, and they get a little bit more committed, right? So they input their name, their email address, and they go into their shipping, and they go into their billing. And at each step, they're completing a small task and moving towards that purchase. And so we want to look at where they're falling off. So one of the reports that we look at is all those steps of checkout. Are they falling off at a certain field, right? Do they fall off when shipping shows up? Do they fall off when credit card shows up? And then working through those adjustments so that you can get people to move from step to step to step better, right? And a lot of times people just have a one-page checkout, and we'll work to move them into a multi-step.
Have you ever found an instance where a single checkout with your shipping and your billing all on one page performed better than a multi-checkout process?
Not in what we were looking at. We were looking at AOVs in the sub $200 range, right? So you're looking at beauty products and health products and things like that. And in almost every scenario, all the ones that we looked at, by moving to a multi-step, we saw an increase in conversion.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
Now, the next number 3 is a really interesting one. It's you have make shipping a benefit and not a deterrent. I like the saying, but let's dive into it a bit more as far as making it a benefit.
Yeah. So shipping is this, because of Amazon, right? Everyone wants free shipping, right? And there are e-commerce brands that just can't afford it, right? And so what we want to do is have a customer understand when they can like qualify for free shipping. So as a good example, because we do a lot of this on Shopify, a lot of Shopify themes have like a utility nav that's at the top of the screen, and it'll have something that says, hey, free shipping over $50. And then it goes away, right? It disappears. So the customer doesn't see it. They don't understand that, hey, I'm going to buy one pair of shorts for $30. And if I also buy a shirt, I'm going to get free shipping. So they add that product to that, say those shorts to the cart, and there's nothing that alerts them that like, hey, you can get free shipping as a benefit, right? If you add this another product to your cart, you're going to qualify for free shipping. And what we don't see a lot, right? You'll see it in the really, 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 really large brands. But when you look at kind of your mid-market brands, they're not looking at like, how do I convert shipping into a something that someone can earn, right? Where they can say, hey, if I buy one more product, I can get free shipping, because they've put it in this little bar, or they put it on one little text line on their page, and then they hide it. And they're not thinking through the fact that somebody's adding a product to the cart, and then they need to know that, oh, I can get rid of this $10 shipping charge, right? I can buy a pair of pants, and those, I can then add a shirt for $20, and the effective cost of that shirt is really only 10. So explaining that to the customer, we've seen good bumps in conversion where we'll put just a simple box, Andy. It's not as complex as you would think. And we would say, you're $12 away from free shipping, right? Buy a shirt to support if you have a pair of pants. Or if you have a shirt in your cart, it might say, go buy a pair of shorts to support it. And those have helped not only increase conversion, but increase AOV as well.
Yeah, it's really popular, of course, to have the free shipping threshold. How do you, when a client comes in, how do you determine what that threshold is?
Yeah, so part of that is what their profit margin is, right? So if they're selling a product and they have enough margin where selling 2 of them, they can cover free shipping, and what the cost to ship is. We also want to look at what a customer is willing to spend, right? So if we know your average product is $25 and your average order is 40, we don't want to make free shipping $75, right? You want to push that customer a little bit. So you might say, hey, we sell a $25 product. We want free shipping to be 2 products, which is $50, and we make X amount on it, and then we can bundle the shipping. So you look at the cost of shipping, where the profit margin is, and where you think you can expand that customer's purchase to generate more revenue.
So it really all comes down to knowing your numbers.
You have to know your numbers, and that's the other thing that's surprising is a lot of these companies don't know their numbers, right? They don't know what the conversion numbers are. They don't know the profitability numbers. And so you want to understand that and then make those decisions, right? So if you're not making enough money on a product to cover free shipping at any point, then you can't offer it, right? So you have to figure out what's your pricing, how many of these can I get people to sell, and get them into a buying pattern where they say, hey, I can see the value of buying one more product because free shipping is going to become available to me, and the company is still making money. So you can't sell these products at a loss.
I'm curious, have you ever tested how far above the average order value you could test? If the average order value is 40, have you tested making the free shipping threshold 50 versus 75 versus 100?
We've tested it from client to client. We haven't gone in. We test it in tiers where you're going to raise up, right? So if your free shipping is 100, we might recommend bring it down, right? Hey, how many products can you sell? And then you'll definitely test pushing it up. What we've generally found is we look at it as kind of like product number 2, right? There's only a certain amount of products people are going to put in their cart. You may not want to buy 10 shirts and a bunch of pants at once. And so we want to get a free shipping down to a number where people are going to make a consistent purchase. So for fashion, apparel, things like that, 2 to 4 items, right? Somewhere in that range. Beauty products might be a little bit more, but you do want to test it. And so what we advise customers to do is say, okay, if you know you can be profitable at $75 AOV, let's put free shipping at $80. Now let's put it at 85 or 90 and see where they start to drop off. And once you know that number, you now have a barometer, right? You can go in and say, hey, we're not gonna run free shipping under 90, and it's when it converts the best. It's where we get the highest AOV, and people are still converting at a good number.
Now, when you're testing stuff like this or anything else you're testing, are you doing A/B testing? So you're comparing the same kind of timelines, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so we'll test either usually we're going to test a previous time frame that correlates to where we are. So we don't want to look at what conversions are in March compared to Black Friday, right? That's not those aren't comparable. We want to know, hey, if your trends are seasonal, we want to know what did Q2 of 2023 do compared to Q2 of 2022. And then we will run A/B tests with the changes that we make. So if we go in and we retool the shopping cart, we'll have all our baseline data, and then we'll watch what's happening with the updated cart. And then we generally iterate on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis.
Got it. Now, number 4 in your articles probably was the most confusing and probably the most difficult to implement as well, but it was optimize ad continuity.
Yeah.
Can you explain that a little bit better?
Yeah, so this is one of my favorite ones, and this goes into buying psychology. So you run ads, right? We're running ads for a brand, and let's say it's a lifestyle ad for a mountain bike company, right? The ad could be a video or an image, and it's somebody riding their bike in this forest with their friends or whatever, right? When we think about the psychology of marketing and buying, yes, they're buying the bike, but they're also buying that experience, right? They're buying what that ad kind of makes them feel. And what we see a lot is we'll have ads that have a lot of that in it, a lot of messaging thought into it, a lot of image thought. What should we be showing? You click and you go to a site, and it's a mountain bike on a white page, right? And it's got all these specs on the side and a button. And it's this idea that I saw the ad and I'm just gonna buy the bike. And that's not how people work, and that's not what they're clicking to see. And so where we see an increase in conversion is it can be as simple as taking that hero image that's the bike on a white background and using a similar image to your ad so that their psychology, their buying psychology and their attitude when they go from the ad to the landing page stays intact. And there's brands that do this really well where you're not selling, I mean, they're selling clothing, right? But you're selling that lifestyle and you want to take that lifestyle into the product side. And what we find is a lot of companies don't think about it that way. It's like, okay, I ran my ad, this is one silo. And then I clicked and I landed on my landing page or my product page or even my home page, which really we very rarely recommend as well. But you land on this product page and now that entire lifestyle, that entire messaging, that entire feeling is gone and it creates a break. And we want to try and keep that together when you go from ad to product page.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I guess a follow-up question I would have, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds on this, but some marketing platforms, Google Shopping comes to mind, or people that are selling stuff on Amazon, you have to have it on a white background. So how do you get around this with the ad continuity?
Yeah, so for us, we were looking at your own e-commerce platform here, right? So when you have requirements of Google and Amazon, that's going to be harder. There are ways within those platforms, like Amazon, you can have additional photos. I also think there's a very different buying process on Amazon than there is on a D2C brand, right? If I'm buying a bike on Amazon, it's just a different way of shopping. And some of those things you can't do, right? You can't increase the cart. Amazon has their own cart. It is what it is, right? And so we haven't really looked at those as much where you're going from an ad to say an Amazon store.
Now, finally, number 5 was you have making the product detail pages a smooth gateway to purchase.
Yeah, so this is another interesting one. And I think for me, this comes with the advent of these tools. Like Shopify is amazing because anyone can go start a store, right? And there's companies that are doing, hundreds of millions of dollars a year on Shopify with their themes and things like that. But when you have these tools, what happens is people aren't looking at like, how is the page structured? And so what you can have is someone clicks on an ad, they go to a product detail page, and the mobile layout, right? They're on their phone. The mobile layout puts the size selector and the add to cart button all the way at the bottom of the screen. So now I've got to scroll like 4 phone screen lengths before I can add the product to the cart. It's just a lot of friction. It's a lot of extra work to ask the consumer to do. And just by taking the time to look at a product page and say, okay, you came from an ad or you found us organically or however, we know the majority of traffic is mobile. We want you to be able to buy as easily as possible. So we're going to reorganize this page. So there's a photo that you can see so you know what you're buying, but your selection options are above the fold. And maybe your product detail pages are below the fold, right? So if you want to know the specs on this mountain bike, right? How big are the wheels? How big is the frame? All that. You don't need that at the top of the screen. You need that down below, right? And you want the buying options, the size selectors, those sorts of things to be up as high as you can possibly do. And people just don't look at it, right? And that's why we kind of wrote this article, and that's what we were looking at is what are the things that people aren't looking at that we came across time and time again. And it was, hey, I have a theme, I dropped in my photos, I put my content, I'm ready to go. It's like, well, your theme's not optimized. It's costing you money because you're not looking at how people are actually purchasing and how they're using your site.
Yeah, I find it very similar. A lot of my clients, I'll tell them that they should place an order at least once a week, a test order on both your mobile and your desktop. But it's amazing how seldom that's done.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff that we've seen is, I mean, everybody's busy, right? And so they get a site up or somebody comes in and they're the head of e-commerce for this brand and they come in and it's like, well, the site's already there. And they're not in a position to say, let's rebuild this whole thing or let's scrap what we're doing. And so you just end up with these pages and these processes that aren't being looked at consistently. And that to me is a real opportunity for people to go in and say, we haven't looked at page speed. We haven't really looked at our cart or our shipping or all these things. We're using the template. I inherited this template from my predecessor, right? And it just is what it is. And there's a lot of optimization that can be done on an e-commerce site to improve sales.
Yeah, I mean, all five of your suggestions are fantastic. Now, I didn't see anything about, and I was so surprised that you didn't mention, but anything on the homepage or branding aspects of the website, or even more surprising, adding testimonial or other trust factors.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you decide to omit these kind of things that could increase conversion?
Yeah, that's a good question. We chose these five because they were consistent across the dozens of e-commerce brands that we were auditing in the last year. Most sites had reviews, right? And getting reviews and trust factors are important. But we were trying to look at the things like, what aren't people looking at? What are those other things that, like, everyone knows you need to review, right? We have to keep brand consistent, but no one's talking about page speed. And so we wanted to bring to light the things that weren't talked about as much. We don't, as an agency, focus as much on the homepage because landing pages, product detail pages, those sorts of things are where we generally recommend ads to be ran, right? And because then you have that one-to-one continuity, right? If you have an ad for a women's product and it goes to the homepage, but the homepage is featuring men's products because it's say Father's Day, you now have a break in continuity, right? And we're going to want you to go from that ad to the product page or to a women's focused landing page. And so we didn't really like touch on some of that stuff when we were doing it.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what I figured. Although, just an interesting tidbit. Speaking of trust factors and testimonials, I was reading last week that the number one trust factor on a website more than testimonials is. Do you know what it was?
No, I don't.
I put you on the spot there, but it's having your phone number was the number one trust factor, even more than testimonials. So I thought that was a great tip for those e-commerce websites who don't have it listed. You should.
I'll have to look that up. That's interesting. It makes sense, right? Because having that phone number indicates that you're, say, a real business, right? That you're like legitimate, even if you're not going to call it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, you gave a lot of stuff here today. If you were going to give somebody action steps, I mean, it's kind of hard. Again, I'm putting you on the spot and you'd be doing it blind. But where would you start for a company that wants to improve their conversion? What should they look at?
Yeah, so the first place I would start, and even though it's out of order in what we wrote, is I would start with the ad continuity. So the first place I would go is ad continuity. You want the ads to match where they're going. You want to keep that consistent mentality, that consistent psychology for that customer. So I would start there. It's also one of the easiest, right? So you can take an e-commerce manager who doesn't know the technical side of page speed, but you can just they can look at an ad and say, okay, this ad has lifestyle. My product page doesn't have lifestyle. I can very easily reorder photos, upload a new photo, right? You can very easily do that. So I would start there. Page speed would be my number two. And it's a technical endeavor to take it on, but it will absolutely improve conversion. And it's like waiting in line. People are only going to wait in line so long. And if you're waiting in line for the pages to load and images to load and things like this, people just leave. It's just part of what they do when they're buying online. So I would start with ad continuity and then go right into page speed would be the first two I would look at.
Do you think websites should use conversion rate optimization companies?
Absolutely. I think you have to find one that knows your industry and knows both the technical and like the ad branding side, right? Because what we see a lot of is people just run ads and they're not worried about what the conversion on the site is doing, right? Because they're just running ads. And you need to have technical knowledge in order to improve these things. You need to know how to go into Shopify and update the theme so it can have different sidebars so you can alert to shipping. You know how to build pop-ups and how to collect newsletter information. So I absolutely do. And I think it's really important to look at, we call it both sides of the coin, you can't just look at the ad, right? Like, this. You can't just go in and be like, oh, I'm going to optimize my ads and everything's great. You have to look at what the site is doing. And a lot of companies that we've come across, they don't have in-house staff that know how to do these things, right? Their staff is more on the e-commerce, the marketing, the branding side. And having somebody in your court with the technical knowledge to increase page speed, to rebuild your cart, to rebuild product pages so they convert better is all going to help you win in the long run.
So you deal a lot with e-commerce companies. What changes do you see on the horizon in the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the buzz right now is everyone's talking AI, right? I think AI is going to be part of it. I don't know in what factor yet. I think things like chatbot shopping is going to take off, where you can just go in and say, I'm looking for a black polo, and it's going to say, here's two, and you can one-click buy if you have an account. I'm really curious. I know it's brand new, but I'm curious with like when they monetize Threads, like what's going to happen with advertising from, is it going to move from Twitter to Threads, and how, like, in this text-based environment, what are the ads going to look like? Those sorts of things I think are going to be interesting as well. And I think it's going to be continued push into mobile, like more and more and more mobile, right? We're seeing the majority of clients are optimizing at the mobile level. People are shopping on their phones more. The younger generation coming in, they're not on computers like I was growing up. And at some point, this scale is going to be so heavy and mobile that you really have to optimize for that experience. You have to optimize for somebody who's not on Wi-Fi, and know that younger generation, that newer buyer that's coming in, that's how they're shopping. That's the technologies that they're using.
Now, we had touched at the beginning of our episode today on 329 and how you got the name for your agency, but I'm curious that have there been any business books that have inspired you on your journey as an entrepreneur?
Oh man, yeah. So we the first one I would say is called Traction, which is a business operating plan that it's for EOS, and it goes through a process on how to run management meetings, how to set quarterly goals, how to knock out those tasks, things like that. That's one of my favorites. Everyone from our leadership team reads that. We run L10s in our business on a weekly basis. I also think Built to Sell, if you've read Built to Sell, is kind of a big one. It's well known, but it helped me look at the business in a way of how do we focus, right? Like, you can't do everything. So how are you going to focus? What are you going to focus on? What are you going to get really, really good at? And then repeat over and over and over and over again. And I think as an entrepreneur coming to business, it was like, we'll do whatever, we'll take whatever. And when we started to hone down, we were able to dive deeper into the things that are going to affect our clients and bring more to the table. So it's that kind of like deep approach to, we do this really well. Those are the two that I love the most. I'm in the middle of another one. I can't think of the name though.
So what do you guys do really, really well at 329?
Yeah, so our ethos is in design, development, and marketing, and where we're really good are in those hard challenges. So it's kind of the stuff that we've been talking about today. How do you eke out 15 points of page speed for a client, right? How do we put in systems like Mixpanel or Iterable or these journey tools so that we can collect personal information and then remarket and solve those complex problems where marketing, development, and creative come together? That's where we're really good, right? Hey, we have a client come to us, say, we don't know how to do this. We need to get all this data into Mixpanel and then into Salesforce, and then we need to run marketing. And then we need to optimize the e-commerce. Like that's where we are at our best, solving those hard problems that you can't just find on Google, right? You can't just go to Google and say, how do I fix my page speed? Like, you have to know what you're doing, and that's where we're really successful.
And you had mentioned Shopify quite a few times. Do you work exclusively with Shopify stores? Do you work with WooCommerce? Do you BigCommerce? What are your clients using?
The three platforms that we do most e-commerce are Shopify, WooCommerce, and Magento. We don't do as much Magento anymore. And one that's coming in is Salesforce. picking up a little bit of steam. Salesforce e-commerce product. And those are the ones that we primarily focus on. We'll build custom Shopify sites. We'll build custom WooCommerce sites, modify them, conversion optimize them, all that sort of stuff.
So who is the perfect client for 329? If they're out there listening, they should hop on a call with you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. So I would say if you're an e-commerce company doing 25 million and up, and you need help on how to get your website to perform better, how to get your entire marketing ecosystem working better and helping you sell product, that's where we excel. And those are the types of companies that we can work with, and we can help increase their revenue, increase their conversion, those sorts of things.
And how can an interested listener learn more about working with you guys?
Best way would be our website. It's 329.com, and the 3 spelled out. So it's P8REE, the number 2, the number 9.com. We have all our information on that site. I'm also on LinkedIn, and we have a profile on LinkedIn where we post content as well. You can find us on. That's really the social platform we focus on.
Well, great. Well, this has been a lot of fun today. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap it up?
No, I don't think so. I appreciate you having me on.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us again today, Kevin.
Thank you.
For listeners, remember, if you like this episode, go to Apple Podcasts and leave us an honest review. And if you're looking for more information regarding 329 or connecting with Kevin, you'll find the links in the show notes below. In addition, if you're looking for more information on growing your business, check out our podcast resource center available at podcast.makeeachclickcount.com. We have compiled all of our different past guests by show topic and included each of the contact information in case you would like more information, any of the services I have discussed during previous episodes. Well, that's it for today. Remember to stay safe, keep healthy, and happy marketing, and I'll talk to you in the next episode.